What he said is exactly right. We found as I used to work at a place like you're talking about. I swallowed wrong. My throat's not working. And so many people come through, whether it's like Uchee Pine, Eden Valley, and it works. It really does. And it's amazing how fast the taste buds do change. We do a program in Rwanda. We just finished our 16th program. December we'll be doing our 17th program. And just an example for diabetes. The last time I was there, a lady comes in, blood sugars in the 400s. She's on insulin. She's on metformin. And I only do a 14-day program there, just due to time frame. And then they stay on the program for 3 months, but we only have the intense part that we're working with them for 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, she was off her insulin, off her metformin, and her blood sugar was at 115. And again, it was at 400. The time before, a lady was in the 400s. She's on insulin, she's on metformin. In 2 weeks, she's off insulin, off metformin, and her blood sugar is at 124. And so it works. When I worked at Regular Healthcare, which I did that for 20 years, and when I left, corporate told me, I told them I was going to a place that could reverse type 2 diabetes. And they said, "Walt, you're crazy. It cannot be done. It can't be done." And then I said, "You can even improve type 1. And then they looked at me straight in the eye and said, "Walt, you're stupid. It cannot be done." And it can be done. And the key is compliance. A person has to stay on the plan. For reversing type 2, we stay on the plan until the person has their ideal body weight. And we'll talk about that in a moment. They have an A1C of 5.6 or less. They have a fasting of 99 or less, and they're on no meds. But let me share what we do. Type 2 diabetes, and we'll talk about type 2 first, then go to type 1. And type 1 is a whole different animal. It's a total different animal. It's a total different disease. If they say today, if they knew what they know today, they would not call both of them diabetes because they're just so different. But and for type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. And you have an insulin receptor that opens and allows glucose in. And everybody's fine. But they found 3 things will stop that insulin receptor from working correctly. One is if they're outside ideal body weight. It's kind of like in the wintertime. You got to open a window and it just doesn't open as well. It's kind of swole shut. The other is there is a fat that is in 3 types of food that can cause the insulin receptor not to work properly. And Duke University found if you stop those 3 foods, not only will it stop affecting the insulin receptor, but the body will go in and clean the insulin receptor back like new. It's amazing. It will go and just clean it right out. Those 3 foods that have that type of fat are oil, dairy, and meat. Oil, dairy, meat. And so during this process, you don't eat any oil, dairy, meat. And the way I found for it to work is it's kind of like restoring a piece of furniture. You got to take a sander to it, you got to take a grinder to it, whatever you got to do to clean it, and then restore it. And then once it's restored, you don't take sandpaper to it anymore. And so I use Duke University as the restoring program, and I use Cornell University as the maintenance program. So Duke University and the restoring program does not use those 3 foods that have that fat in them that can stop the insulin receptor. Again, oil, dairy, and meat. The 4th cause of the receptor not working right is inflammation. Now, Harvard says the number 1 cause of inflammation in the body is processed foods. The number one cause of inflammation in the United States is because of processed foods. But there's other things that cause inflammation. It can be a low vitamin D level. A low vitamin D level can cause inflammation in the cell to cause the insulin receptor not to work right. Also, low vitamin D level can actually affect the pancreas in the production of insulin, which doesn't have a thing to do with the insulin receptor. It happens in the pancreas. So vitamin D can affect both the inflammation and the production of insulin. Another thing that can cause inflammation in the cell is toxins. Toxin can cause inflammation, which can cause the receptor not to work right. And that's why what you were talking about. You got to detox that person. Another thing that can cause it is sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation can cause inflammation. And so you want to identify anything that might cause that inflammation. And so Duke's program tried to address all those levels of the ideal body weight, the fat, and the inflammation. So what do we do? So what Dr. Kempner at Duke University did was kind of visualize your plate. Now, Kempner did a little different, but this is what the Africans taught me in Rwanda. And they like Purdy. They're like Mary Lou. They like Purdy. She likes things. She'll use a red onion because she says it's purtier. She says it's more nutritious, but I think she's more after the Purdy. So in Rwanda, I told them they needed 3 servings of fruit. That's what Kempner wanted at Duke. They wanted more than 3 servings of fruit. So we negotiated 6 half servings equals to 3 servings. It worked. They went for it. So what we did is they wanted to make it pretty. So you take the brown rice. Dr. Kempner used brown rice for the protein. And then you can put in the brown rice, say, some scallions, some cilantro, some turmeric. That makes it a little prettier in of itself. And then you take that cup of brown rice and fill it like you would a sand bucket at the beach. And then turn it over like you would making a sandcastle. And now in the middle of your plate, you got this heap of brown rice that looks real pretty. And then around the plate, you put your fruit. Now, if bananas runs your blood sugar high, if grapes runs your blood sugar high, you just don't choose those right now. You'll get to them later, but not right now. So if any of the fruits cause your blood sugar to go nuts, just stay away from them right now. We'll get to them later. But put those fruits around there. Either 3 servings of apple, orange, pear in of itself each, or a half a cup of raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, or like we do in Africa, 6 half servings. And so you have your fruit going around. And it looks real pretty. All the different colors. One lady one time, she's over the rural medical in Rwanda. And so she came through our program. I mean, we had ambassadors. We had the head of the World Health Organization for the country. We had, just all kinds of people come through. Well, this lady was over rural health, over everything that happens in rural health medicine. And she determines the protocols. Well, she came through the program just to see what we were doing, to see if she wanted to add anything in their protocols in rural health. And so we're sitting there one day, and she says, "Why are you Americans so boring?" I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "All you wear is dark colors, blues and grays and blacks. You need color." Well, they like color over there in Africa. And so what they would do is we'd have this big bar and of all kinds of fruit. And they would go and they'd pick their 6 fruits they wanted, and they put it on there where it looked, just the color pattern was just like they were interior decorators or something, and that brown rice in the middle. And it's, where does digestion start? Galen's right. In the eyes, the nose. Yeah, so first of all, there is no cookie cutter. Everybody's different. So she may be an outlier where right now she can't do any fruit. For her, I would look at juicing vegetables. And have you ever watched Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead? It's a great documentary you can watch, fatsickandnearlydead.com. He's Australian, so he's got a weird sense of humor. Watch movie 1, not movie 2. But she could do that 60 days. If you went to University of Alabama at Birmingham and you had cardiac issues, significant cardiac failure, that advanced cardiac team will put you on juicing for 70 days. I had a young girl just a couple years ago in Minnesota, 18-year-old girl. Just boom, she was working at UCI and then just totally crashed. She literally had the cognitive function of a 90-some-year-old woman. She had the ambulation of a 90-some-year-old woman. Her mother had to assist her. Her mother's a nurse, had to assist her with ambulation. Took her to University of North Dakota. The medical center said, we have no idea. Sent her down to Rochester to Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic did all kinds of workup. Sent her home, said she'd be an invalid the rest of her life. We went and prayed. We said, what? And that's number one, y'all. Prayer's number one. And again, you know how you buy the car and you go, that just ain't right. Or you pray on it and you go, yes, I have peace with it, and you buy that car. And so I told her in a mall, I said, pray on it. If you have peace, do it. So they went home. About 8 months later, Mary Lou and I saw her over in Newport. And we were working at a health fair. And there she was. UCI had come up. She was back to work at UCI. And there she was, wide open again. How are you doing? What happened? Well, Mom and I went home. We prayed on it. And we felt impressed by God not to do a 60-day juice fast, but to do a 90-day juice fast. It's amazing what juicing will do. And that's going to be vegetables, so you won't have an issue with the fruit. Do that, and then we'll come back to answer your question. So Galen's right. Yes, Mary Lee. Is it possible what? It is true. Was she doing brown rice? Was she only doing fruit, or was she also doing some fiber? Okay, Mary Lou's right. Because fiber causes time release of sugar. So she might be able to, as Mary Lou's saying, use the brown rice. There's enough fiber there that it slows down the absorption of the sugars. Let's say that she has a blood sugar bottom out. Does she use an apple or does she use apple juice? Apple juice. Because there's no fiber in the apple juice, it's going to get in the system a whole lot faster. There's too much fiber, it's going to take too long with the apple. And so that brown rice is a possibility. Adding that brown rice could be enough fiber to slow that absorption down. That's a good point. Yeah, the juicing would be tremendous. It really is. But like Galen said, digestion starts in the eyes, the nose. Have you ever seen some good-looking food and all of a sudden digestion's already, it starts working? Have you ever seen a lemon be squeezed and you can feel it in your mouth? Yeah. Or smell something? If it smells real good, does that help digestion? If it looks like hog slop, does that help? Walk out to the hog pen. Does that look appetizing? Is that going to get your digestive juices going? Yeah. So make the food purty. Make it smell good. And that's where digestion starts. So Duke would do this for breakfast, the brown rice, 1 cup of brown rice, and the fruit. Then for the noon meal, Dr. Kempner would do a nice big salad, just a nice big old vegetable salad, broccoli, cucumbers, cauliflower, just like going to a smorgasbord of vegetables and putting all kinds of vegetables on there, greens and whatever. But because of the oil thing, what were the foods that had that oil in it? That fat in it? Oil, dairy, and meat. So Kempner said no oil, dairy, and meat because there's a type of fat in there that will clog the receptor. And we want the receptors to clean out. So he said you could put lemon juice. I found that you got to negotiate sometimes, especially with men. Ladies are more prone to do the lemon juice. Men are going, And so I found something works real good, and that is salsa. Guys like today, did y'all have salsa on your salad? Didn't that not taste good? Yeah, that works good. And so a low sodium salsa will work well on that. And then the 1 cup of brown rice. Now the brown rice, again, is the protein. If you have a person that has gout, they may not be able to tolerate the brown rice. It will kick out their gout symptoms. And so you may have to use, quinoa. And quinoa has a little higher protein. But the reason Kempner liked the brown rice is because you know how like wheat bran? Well, brown rice has a bran, and brown rice bran is really good for the heart. It's great for cardiac issues. And a person who was going to Duke, usually when they came in for diabetes, they usually also had heart issues too. Why? It's in North Carolina. Biscuits, gravies, hog jowl, chitlins. You know what I'm talking about. Southern food. And so they usually had cardiac issues. So he was also treating not only their diabetes, but also with that brown rice bran addressing heart issues too. Now, when I went to the center that I worked at, went there straight from regular health care to there. They were doing breakfast and they were doing dinner. Now, dinner's the noon meal. They were not doing a mid-morning snack. They were not doing an afternoon snack. They were not doing supper. And they were not doing an HS snack, hour of sleep. So I go and I tell the docs, listen, you've got to do mid-morning snack, afternoon snack, supper, and hour sleep snack. I was the director. And I didn't want something happening to the patients that I would be liable for. But they decided to play with me. Why? That's a standard of practice. It's what the American Dietetic Association tells us to do. And then they asked me a question, one question, and I walked out. How many diabetics you reverse where you come from? In 20 years, 0. 0. So I still wasn't happy. I go back to my office. I go in the office, and guess who I call? Dr. Agatha, because I trusted her. So I called Dr. Agatha, the lady he was just talking about, and I said, Dr. Agatha, numbers are good. Outcome indicators are good, but I don't want these people hurt. And I've been taught that you need those snacks in a supper and an HS snack. And she starts laughing in her little chuckle. And she said, Brother Walt, that is how you reverse type 2 diabetes. Once I had her validation, I left them alone because she knew what she was talking about. I miss her. So much information. If you do not eat breakfast, you increase your risk of a heart attack or a stroke by 150% based on what's going on in the platelets. When you do eat breakfast, it increases metabolism, you burn calories. When you eat dinner, the noon meal, it increases metabolism, you burn calories. But Dr. Koop, a world-renowned expert on metabolism, found around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, our metabolism starts to shut off. It's already started now. It's 3:45. And so when we eat supper, the metabolism doesn't increase and burn those calories as effectively. And therefore, we have issues with weight. And that's a big cause of the first big issue with type 2 diabetes is with insulin resistance is we're outside ideal body weight. Another interesting thing, a good friend of mine, Dr. George Kim. Do you know George? Arnold, Pastor Arnold, his wife's sister's husband. He was a twin. She is a twin. Arnold, Jeremy Arnold. Yes, Jeremy's wife's sister's husband, George Kim. George is over in North Carolina. He's internal medicine. He called me one day. He says, Walt, I just got out of a conference. You won't believe what they found out. And this has been several years ago. And he says, we thought that cancer spread was significantly through the the DNA, but we're learning it's really through the mitochondria. And he said they have found that if you eat after 2:30 in the afternoon, it affects the health of the mitochondria and is more prone to spread cancer cells. Interesting, huh? So something's going on by eating after 2:30 and eating after 3. Something in that time frame. The next thing that Kempner looked at Duke University was drinking adequate water. Water's huge. When a person is dehydrated, they're more prone to, the hypothalamus says you're in a drought, retain fluids. How much does this weigh? 1 pound. A pint is a pound as the world is round. And so you have fluid retention. Fluid retention is weight. We know that people who are dehydrated, they're more prone to gain weight. We learned today that every function in the body is dependent on proper hydration. And so hydration is big. The next thing that Dr. Kempner looked at Duke University was exercise. And this morning we talked about, he found that if we exercise 4 times a day as the children, that significantly improve many functions. And one of those is diabetes. Loma Linda Medical School found that a 20-minute power walk, get this, a 20-minute power walk lowers the blood sugar more than 1 shot of insulin. That's huge. So if you're exercising 4 times a day, that's like you're taking 4 shots of insulin by just exercising, having the same outcome indicator. That's huge. So exercise is big. Exercise is also important for weight loss. The fourth thing that Kempner looked at was he had people go to sleep around 9 o'clock at night. Sleep is amazing. Sleep deprivation, as we saw earlier today, can cause weight gain. It can cause the body not to run as well. And so by being asleep by 9, getting those 8 hours of sleep are really important. That's the 4 things that Kempner looked at. I add a 5th item. It's the most important, trusting God, because God is the one that's doing the healing. And I find that is very effective in reversing type 2 diabetes. And so we stay on that program, the Duke program, until we're at ideal body weight. Now, there's different ways you can look at ideal body weight. So you have, why did it do that, Dan? Will that go up? We'll see if they can cipher that. Yeah, so he went to green in BMI, so he was in ideal body weight. Uh-huh. Okay. No. Mm-hmm. And what was his blood sugar? Still too high. Yeah. Still too high. He wants to be below 99. What's his A1C? Yeah. You want to go below 99. What's his A1C? You want to go below 5.6 or below. So he wants to continue on a little bit more. So I don't know if we can get that up or not. And so when you do BMI, and there's different ways of looking at it. One is body mass index, BMI, which I don't like because it doesn't take into account male, female. It doesn't take into account muscle issues. Yeah. And so I had a guy come in. This guy was about this tall, mid-60s. He broke the Guinness Book of World Record at least once, if not twice a year, in strength. This guy was a bull. When you put him on the BMI, at his height, he literally was off the chart, more than grotesquely obese. But if you went to try to pinch him for fat, it was like trying to pinch this piece of wood. He was just a bull. And I'm going, something's wrong with this chart because this guy, he's amazing. And so then I learned about percent body fat. Well, I knew about percent body fat, but then I started learning about the difference between BMI and percent body fat. Percent body fat takes into account for male, female, takes into account for age, takes into account for at what level you want to be, whether you're just want to be an average person or if you want to be an athlete. And so percent body fat is much more accurate than body mass index. And so what you do to find out percent body fat is just go to your local gym and they can do that there, or they can you can buy one of them scales at Walmart. It will tell you what your percent body fat is. But you want to stay on the program until your ideal body weight. Some people say, well, I'm just big boned. Well, that's where the BMI is not as accurate as percent body fat. So you stay there on the Duke program, the diet, the exercise, the water, the going to bed on time, and you stay on it until you have ideal body weight, until you have a A1C of 5.6 or less, you have a morning fasting of 99 or less, and you're not taking any medication. And then when all that takes place, then we go to Cornell University. And Cornell University is, who's ever watched Forks Over Knives? That's the Cornell University program. It's Cambridge, Cornell University, and that program, I find, we were talking about the study from Loma Linda. Gotcha. And they found the Loma Linda study, people lived an average of 12 years longer. The Cornell study, when you did the Cornell program, They found those folks lived on an average of 15 years longer until last year. They found out Cornell was wrong. It is not 15 years. It's 20 years longer doing the Cornell program. What is the difference? The Loma Linda program was a vegetarian program that still used dairy. The Cornell program did not use dairy. Here it comes. So that's for type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is different. It's totally different. Okay, see if that works, Dan. So in the type 1 diabetes, you're dealing with the insulin production. And you can, to see, what your C-peptide is. And that's a good example of seeing what your production of insulin is. Can type 1 diabetes be reversed? Possibly. Dr. Milton Crane at Loma Linda Medical School found that if you could catch it in the honeymoon period, and the honeymoon period is within that 8 months. And if you can catch it in the 8 months, and if you did certain things like stop the cause, the number one cause Loma Linda found was dairy. Cornell found that dairy increases type 1 diabetes by 1,100%. They also found that dairy is, and I grew up on a dairy farm. Mary Lou grew up on a dairy farm. Pardon? Liquid? Any kind of dairy. Cheese, meat, cheese, milk, butter, sour cream, cream cheese, any kind of dairy product is the most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered. And that blew me away. That blew me away. The most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered. And that's what my family, for generations, that was their business. And then also just look at it is to increase the type 1 would by 1,100%. So Loma Linda had already figured that out. Yes? Any. They found any type of dairy. And he looked at both. Cornell looked at both raw and processed. Both. Cow dairy. So that's different. Is stevia and honey different? Yes. Honey it will increase glycemic index. Stevia has a 0 glycemic index. So it's totally different. Stevia is good. Yes, stevia is just a plant. So it's perfectly fine. It is a sugar, but it has a 0 glycemic index. So it's perfectly fine for a type 1 diabetic to use it. Pardon? Stevia and honey. For stevia versus honey. Honey you have to be cautious with. The turbinado? No. Which is the one Mary Lou stepped out? Is it succinate? Well, there's one that's less glycemic index. I'll think of it maybe in a moment. But still, honey's honey. Honey still has a high glycemic index. So the thing on dairy that Kempner found, that Dr. Crane found at Loma Linda, is that dairy is a major cause of type 1 diabetes. And so you have to stop the cause, and that's the dairy. Number 2 is he found that if you use niacinamide is a type of B3, like niacin, niacinamide. And you can go to NIH and look up type 1 diabetes, niacinamide, New Zealand study. And it will share with you the milligrams of niacinamide based on the kilograms of weight. It's very low dosage. It's not very high at all. And they found that could be very beneficial in addressing the type 1 diabetes. The third thing that Kempner found, that Crane found at Loma Linda, was when the child, after they ate, exercised the child hard. Now, normally we'd think, no, that would be just the opposite. But he would, after each meal, he would exercise the child hard. And he found that if he did those 3 things and could catch it within the honeymoon period of the first 8 months of onset, and that's the problem, onset. Many parents don't raise their kids. You know, they're who knows what's going on. The school teacher finds, says something's wrong with Sally, and the school nurse goes and checks her and finds her blood sugar's high, and then it's not the parents identify the behavior, it's the school system identifies it. And by the time they finally find it, it's over the 8 months, and it's outside of the honeymoon period. There's a movie you can watch. It's a documentary. It's called Simply Raw. Simply Raw. Dr. Cousin is the physician that's over the program. It's out west, New Mexico, Arkansas, Arizona, And Cousin was doing research on type 2 diabetes and found that by doing just raw, he was finding benefit of even type 1 reversing. And so there is possibility, but the challenge is difficult. Now, until we understand physiology until we effectively understand physiology, there's times we have to use medication when it's life or death. It's just horse sense. You don't just say, well, I'm never going to use medicine again. Do that to a type 1. Do that to a thyroid patient. They can die. And so, as we understand physiology, like type 2, we now understand the type 2 diabetic physiology to where we now see reversal of type 2. We see over a 98% reversal rate of type 2 diabetes if they're compliant, which before I never saw any when I worked at regular health care. Why? We didn't understand the physiology. But in type 1, the best we understand, we just aren't having the ability to immediately just say, oh, you can come off your medication. Yes, we see if a person applies what we've learned today, it is not uncommon to see a person using 60, 80 units of insulin to go down to 20, 10, even 5 units because they've done the exercise, which is like 1 shot of insulin, or they're eating healthy foods, and so that's beneficial, and definitely even 20 units of insulin is better than 60 or 80. The key is we're studying pharmacology. We're not studying physiology. We've got to study physiology more so that I believe the better we understand physiology, as we do now in 2, I think we can in 1 if we just keep studying. And as we keep researching, we can find answers. I believe God has answers for us. An example, I'm in Rwanda. I'm out in the big park. And there's a national ranger there. And he said, do not get out of your vehicle and walk in the grass. There's black mambas. And if it bites you, you will not make it back to Kigali because we're 3 hours away. You will die. Period. You will die. So I asked the man, is there any old men here that know herbs that you could take and you would live? And he looked to the side, and he looked to the side to make sure no one was looking. He said, yes. He says, the old men know of 3 herbs that if you put it together, you will live. But you got to find the old men. You got to find those 3 herbs in time. But what I'm saying is, they understand the physiology. They know those herbs to address as an antivenom. And I believe as we continue to search, we'll find answers. But we just have to keep searching and do the best that we can until we get there. Yes? Mm-hmm. Any oil. Duke found any oil. And then if you go back and you look at Pritikin, they stop the oils. If you look at Ornish, they stop the oils. If you look at Esselstyn at Cleveland Clinic, he stopped the oils. So Duke started it, and then the other guys started seeing the benefits. Yeah, even coconut oil, any oil at all. Any. No oil at all in that process. Now, once the receptors are cleaned out, we reverse the type 2, then you can start using in moderation. Yes. Any questions on type 1 or type 2 diabetes? Yes. Goat dairy is different. I don't know the research on goat dairy versus cow dairy, so I can't answer that one. Okay, that's a good sweetener. Yes, it's a natural. After the radiation, it could have been something in there that messed up the islet cells, just like a low vitamin D can affect the islet cells. Yeah. I don't know, though, the glycemic index on monk fruit. So it is a healthier sugar, but I don't know, like honey. Mary Lou, what's the, is it Tupelo honey that has the lower glycemic? Okay, yeah, Tupelo. So if you're going to go with a honey that has the lowest glycemic, it's Tupelo honey. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. For a baby. Yes. Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for goat milk, I wouldn't be standing here. I went down to 4 pounds. I couldn't nurse from my mom. I grew up on a dairy, couldn't do cow's milk. And the Dr. Graves, you know George Graves in Dunlap, his father, Charles Graves, told my folks, he said, try goat milk. I got so fat they had to water it down. So goat milk is different. Another thing you can use is coconut water. In Central America, if the lady does not have milk, or they don't have a lady that she can't produce milk, she's dry, and you don't have a wet nurse, then they'll use coconut water, and that will sustain life for that infant for a period of time until they can find milk. Yeah. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Because anxiety will what it does is it raises cortisol and adrenaline, and when that happens, blood sugar goes up, clotting factor goes up, pulse goes up, blood pressure goes up, digestion shuts off. Actually, your body's healing factor shuts off, and so things go up, but then and that's why if you eat when stressed, you don't break that food from macro to micro, and then you're not absorbing those nutrients. And so even though you're eating adequate nutrition, like protein or whatever, and so you're eating the proper foods, but you're not breaking it down from the macro to the micro, and your villi can't absorb it into the duodenum because it's not small enough, and then you just defecate it right out. That's high. Yes, ma'am. And so I would try what we talked about. I believe it would help you. Let's talk about God first. Someone asked me in the break if I'd talk about this. Regarding stress, anxiety. A lady comes in and her boy is in prison. He shot a state trooper. Told he'd be in prison the rest of his life, and so she was distraught. I don't understand that because I don't have a child in that situation, but I can only hypothesize what it would be like. I think we have to be careful saying, I understand where you are. If I'm not there, I don't know. I ain't walking in your moccasins. But I can only imagine. And so she was having health issues because of it. And so I asked her to take a piece of paper and write down all of her stressors. And then take a piece of paper, and we drew a line and made a T on that piece of paper. And on the top of the left side of the T, we put controllables. On the top of the right side, we put non-controllables. And where things that she could control, we put here. Things there was narrow things she could do, we put on non-controllables. And that's where we put boys in prison. And then I tore the piece of paper in half. And I said, we'll set the controllables down, but the non-controllables, I want you to go home and I want you to sit down and talk to God. And give it to Him. I said, God loves your son more than you love your son. He will take care of him to the best that can be. Definitely more than you can just crying. And I said, crying and fretting ain't fixing it. So she went home and she did this. And she'd be again tormented. Your boy's in prison, your boy's in prison. Because I said, give it to God, but do not take it back. That's the problem, is we take it back and we waller in the mud with it. And we have OCD with it. And we just keep playing with it. No, give it to Him and don't take it back. And so Satan will come back and say, your boy's in prison. And she said, ain't mine. That's God's, and to go and get out of here. And it worked a little, but not fully. So I told her a story about a lady who came in back 21 years ago. Mary Lou was at home, homeschooling the kids. It was a Friday morning. Around 10:30 in the morning, I was helping some ladies. There was 4 ladies there. I can still see it in my mind in the event. Girl comes walking in. Probably in 27, 28 years old. Comes in, walks around, comes behind the counter, and she looked like a whooped dog. I mean, she didn't look good. And I said, can I help you? She says, you walk? Yes, ma'am. She said, they told me you could help me. And I could tell she was going to take a lot of time. It was Friday morning. I was by myself. I said, can you come back Monday morning, 8 o'clock? I will sit down with you, see if I can help. And she says, I will. She starts walking out, walks around. She gets about to right there, and she stops and looks at me, and she says, I will be the worst case you've ever dealt with. Continues on, and she leaves. And she said, she was gone. And we all looked at like, what just walked in here? I mean, she was dressed very different. hair very different, and literally she didn't look good at all. And Monday morning, she was there right on time. And I said, she sits down, and I start taking history. Start talking to her. She's telling me her history, and she says, I need to tell you something. I said, yes, ma'am. She says, I can make things levitate. Do you believe me? I said, yes, ma'am, I do. She didn't say anything else, so I continue. We keep talking. She says, I need to tell you something else. I said, what's that? She said, see that new O'Reilly's Auto Parts right across the street? I've never been in there, but I can tell you where everything is in that building. Do you believe me? I said, yes, ma'am, I do. And what do you think I'm doing? I'm praying. So we continue on. She didn't say anything. So we continue. Do we have a good idea what's going on? She told me that she had been to a psychiatrist and the drugs didn't work. She told me she came in, the presenting problem was her head. Well, is there a head problem? Yeah, there's a head problem. She'd been to a psychologist, and she said the therapies didn't work. Oh, no, the drugs ain't going to work for that, and the therapies ain't going to work for that. And she said, they told me that your herbs would be able to help me. And I told her that my herbs would not be able to help her. And we started talking, and I mentioned Jesus. She started shaking like she was having a seizure. I said, what's wrong with you? She says, they don't like that name. Do I have confirmation? Yes. And so we continue on. I thought, well, science, we do science. Yes, science is testing. So I mentioned God. She did not shake. Did not shake when I mentioned God. Then I thought, science is always double testing, yes? So let's double test. And so again, I say Jesus, and she starts shaking again. We have confirmation. And so I shared with her the benefits of we need to address brain function. Yes, flaxseed can help brain function because of the omega-3s and the tryptophan to help the serotonin. And I talked about B-complex can help with stress. And trace minerals are the catalyst that kicks on the vitamins, which is the catalyst that kicks on fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, and that can help with nutrition. And I said, I want you to do this. I want you to come back next week, next Monday at 8 o'clock, and I want you to say, every time they start talking to you, you say, in Jesus' name, Satan, get thee behind me. I said, I don't care if you say it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You just keep saying it until they quit talking to you. She said, okay. So we get up, we start to walk out. And I remember that the week before that Gideon's had come and they'd given me a New Testament. You know what Gideons are. And they gave me a little New Testament. And it was white in color. And I said, I want you to read this between now and next Monday, whatever you can read. And she said, okay. And she left. She came back the next Monday, 8 o'clock. She was right on time both days. And she looked literally like a different woman. She looked normal. I mean, she didn't look like a whooped dog. And I said, how are you doing? And she says, I'm doing great. I said, are they talking to you? She says, they can't talk to me. I says, why aren't they talking to you? She says, I said what you said. And when I say that, they cannot talk to me. Now, is that not powerful? That's huge. And I said, did you have a chance to read that little book I gave you? And she said, yes, I especially like the first 4 books in that book. Especially meant more than she had read. But she especially liked the first 4. Why? She said, because it talks about Jesus. And she did not shake. So I tell this story to the lady whose son is in prison. And I said, I want you to, every time Satan comes and says, your boy's in prison, your boy's in prison, you start saying, in Jesus' name, Satan, get thee behind me. Did Jesus do that? He did. Did it work? It did. And I want you to keep doing it until he quits saying it. And she does so much better now. She's not tormented by that. Now, the little problems that we deal with are nothing compared to what that little gal had. She told me, and her husband told me later, that she was being elevated out of bed at night and thrown against the wall. And things that I did not even know that demons did to humans. Amazing. It stopped. The problem? She started having some problems again. I could just tell as she would come to the store that, you can tell things are different. And I said, how are you doing? Are you having problems? Some, but I'm okay. Do you have anything in the house that can be associated with that demonic situation? Yes. She still had what she got into it with. And I said, you and your husband, go to the river and throw it in the river. She would not do that. And she went back into that life. You got to get rid of it. You cannot hang on to that. And Satan came back and overtook her. Some folks asked if they could ask some questions.
I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but one night when I was at home, the electric went out, and there was a noise in the room, and my dog even got upset. And I said, who are you? He said, I'm Satan. I've come to get you. And I said, no, you're not. I'm a child of God, covered in his blood. And I have not had that problem since. But if it does come back, I don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
Yes, my mother was into telling fortunes. She would read cards, coffee grounds, and tea leaves. And somebody in the family got killed. And my dad walked in and he said, no more. But can that be like a fourth generational curse? I heard that. I just don't know.
I don't know, but he's definitely going to try down the road and see if he can get y'all.
Well, he's got my granddaughter now with a Ouija board.
Very dangerous.
And I told her to get rid of it.
Absolutely. Burn it. Any other questions?
This is for encourage, but yeah, that is true what you say, my brother. I heard another testimony that this was a lady that she lost her daughter, and she was so much passionate with that daughter that she didn't go neither to the room of the daughter. No, do not enter in that room. No, don't enter that. And the brother, I think so, that was Jackson, Brother Jackson. He say, if you don't get ready of this, it will be tormenting you continually till she left. She threw away all.
Any other questions? All right.
I can share a quick testimony. I was a youth minister, so I worked with young people in Battle Creek, Michigan for 8 years, and I've always been active in working with young people. I taught for 10 years anatomy and physiology, biology, and Bible. But I heard about a band called Guns N' Roses, and there was a documentary on them. And so when my wife went to visit, I was alone. She took the kids, her folks. I decided that I was curious to discover about Guns N' Roses. So I watched this documentary, and then that night, I woke up at 2 o'clock. I looked at the alarm clock. It said 2 o'clock, and all the lights were on in the house. And I can't sleep with any light. And I know that I always turn off all the lights in the house. So the following night, I went to bed, turned off all the lights, jumped in the sack, and I woke up at 2 o'clock sharp. And the clock said 2 o'clock. And I looked out the bedroom door and all the lights in the house were on. And the Lord spoke to me very clear, don't be curious to learn about these bands that have sold their souls to the devil. And that scared the toolies out of me. I went to my knees and I repented. I asked God, please forgive me. So I think you got to get rid of this stuff in the house. And I know I have family members who have bands that have been given power and popularity and money because they have sold their souls to the devil. And with movies, the same way. Same way. The devil wants to get a foothold. If he can get a foothold, he can destroy your life. Oh, you have it? Yeah, go ahead.
Now? Okay. It wasn't on. A quick question about natural remedies. This is like chigger season. Can you recommend something for that? And then before you answer, real quick, when I first became a Christian, an Adventist, I should say, because I was already a Christian, I got this deep impression one night to get up and throw away a soapstone vase that I had bought. And I'm like, what? That's pretty crazy. I had all kinds of soapstone, but it was just this one particular one that was in my book cabinet. And so I waited till the next morning. I got up, I looked at it, and it had a dragon on it. The head had been broken off, so I never realized it. But God will counsel us.
On chiggers. So for chiggers, I learned this from an old mountain fella. And so I don't use what he used because he used kerosene. But what he would do is take a handkerchief, sop it up in kerosene, wring it out, and then tie it around the base of his breeches on his shoe or his boots. And when he was going out berry picking, because chiggers are bad in berry picking or whatever, and chiggers comes off the ground. And so what you can do is instead of using the kerosene, you can use essential oils and put on that handkerchief that you wrap around, or cloth that you wrap around your ankles. And you can, there's different ones. There is eucalyptus. There is peppermint. There is clove. Clove is a powerful one. There is cedar wood. But those are different examples. And you can actually put all of those on there even. And tie it around your ankle, or if they wanted to climb up your shoe, they'll say, I don't like that smell, and they jump back off. And it worked with kerosene, and it works with the essential oils, and that can keep them from getting on you. You can just put enough on there that it smells right good. Yes. If you get bit by them, you can put, I don't know how healthy this is. Yeah. Clear nail wash. I used it and it worked for me, but maybe not. Clear nail polish. It will. For some people it can work. It suffocates. Yeah. For some people it works. Some people it may not. Yes. Tell me.
Alcoholic. And in the morning, I had not one sugar bite. I'm right next to him. And he's got 204. He was one miserable human being. So I don't know if his sweetness was attractive compared to my not sweetness. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a question up here. Oh. Do we have a mic here we can use?
Yeah, I have to get up, I have a night light, and you said something about if it's any other thing but
Red.
red, what
Mhm.
happens?
It turns down to turns off your melatonin. So, okay, so our body makes melatonin. Also, if you take melatonin, if that light is any color than red, it can turn it down to even turn it off. So just have red night lights.
Okay, we're gonna.
There's
we're
a
gonna
question
have
back here.
Closing prayer.
Okay.
And if you have any more questions, you can ask Walt after.
Okay.
But why don't you tell us where your practice is and
Okay.
a little bit about that?
So we're in Newport, and just right across the street from O'Reilly's.
For someone directionally challenged, it depends
So
on.
take
his-
I-40, take exit 435,
Okay.
get off on exit 435, take a left, and we're 1 mile on the left.
Okay. Yeah, it's a hopping place. So if you need herbs or vitamins or what else do you have there?
It's 331 Cosby, Cosby Highway. And so we've got 200 and some herbs. We've got food. We've got supplements, but
Essential oils?
essential oils, yes. But we have folks just coming in and just want to talk about health issues or personal issues. And
Yeah.
Newport.
Yeah. So I was there. I've been there several times, and it's Grand Central Station. A lot of people there, and he's so kind. He gives counsel and advice, and has helped a lot of many people. How many of you have enjoyed his presentations? How many of you want him to come back? Yeah. We'll invite you back. Why don't we bow our heads for the closing prayer? Father in heaven, we do want to thank you so much for the information that you have given to us. And Lord, you know we are weak, we are feeble, we have made bad choices in our life, but you are a God of second chances, and you, through your Holy Spirit, will give us power to implement some of these things that we have learned about. I know I learned many valuable things this morning and this afternoon. And Lord, now we all have learned some amazing things. And so now we ask for your grace to implement these things into our everyday life. And we know that you want us to have not only longevity, but quality of life. And so that's why you have bestowed and given us this wonderful, wonderful information. And we thank you for that. Bless everyone here. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for coming.